Today's video is going to be a little different. It's going to be about something I struggle with a lot, and maybe some of you do too, and that's simply giving up on something when it's hard.
Why must life be so hard?
And this applies especially to those of us in this hobby and in 3D printing. So as many of you know, I have started 3D printing a salamander army for my son. And I've been learning a lot of stuff along this whole process. And one of the things that I recently learned is how to print a tank, specifically a Land Raider, because I needed a Land Raider for this army. And this has been a lesson in patience. This has been a struggle. And the sad thing is that when I started this, I thought, this is going to be easy. This is going to be so easy. Boy, was I wrong. When I first started this channel, I wanted it to be something helpful for anyone looking to get into this hobby, like I was. I've loved Warhammer since I was 9 years old, and I walked into a magic card shop, and saw the painted miniatures behind the counter and just thought, that is amazing. But for a 9-year-old, Warhammer's a little out of reach, especially with the prices as they are now. And so 3D printing an army became this thing that I was like, if I can do this, I already had the printer. I already had the stuff for other reasons, just because I like 3D printing, And so I thought, if I can get into this and I can do it for an affordable cost and show people that it's not that bad, yeah, I'm totally going to do that. And so I started doing this. Now, Wargamer sent me resin that I have used for the units. But as far as resin goes, you can use any kind of resin. It doesn't have to be Wargamer. Wargamer's awesome for this especially. But for the tank, it was something I never wanted to print on a resin printer. Resin goes a long way. I've used one bottle of Wargamer, and I printed roughly half my army just with one bottle of resin. Easily half of my army with one bottle of resin. But when you start printing big stuff, that's when resin goes so fast. It's crazy how many little things you can print, but when you start printing big things, a bottle of resin doesn't go very far. And I knew that if I printed a tank with a bottle of resin, it would eat up the resin. And it would cost a ton. If you buy them from Games Workshop, they cost a literal ton. But I wanted to try and do it, as cheaply as possible. I wanted to get this army on the table and be like, look, here's my army. It cost me 25 cents. You can do this too. Obviously that's not the case, but I wanted to stick to that as closely as I could. And so I printed the tank on my FDM printer, and FDM printers have their own challenges. Anyone who owns one knows they have their own challenges, and the newer ones coming out have less and less and less of those challenges. Heck, most of the stuff that's caused me issues right now is because I don't have an auto bed leveler. Okay. But for those of you out there who have older printers who don't have auto bed leveling, it's doable. It's doable, and it's totally worth it. And I know it doesn't sound like it is, but it totally is worth it. And the reason I say that is because just holding this thing in my hand after 3D printing it, after getting it done, has made me feel amazing.
I feel so good with it.
And maybe that's why this hobby is so addictive, is because you get to put these little things together that start from these little pieces. It's like Legos, right? But in the end, you get to paint the Lego. You get to make it your own Lego. And 3D printing, well, you get to make the Legos too, right? And so just a little bit of the story of the journey of how this all went to be is I found the files to print this thing, and I thought they looked amazing. And something on top of that always makes me feel happy is when the instructions say that it doesn't need supports. This thing was literally in, 40 pieces. I got a picture of the bucket, of these pieces. And It took a minute to put together. Not as bad as you'd think. It probably took me an hour to put it together once I had all the pieces printed. And I didn't know what I was doing when I started printing the files. So I literally just pulled everything out and printed them all. And it had gun layouts. It had multiple gun layouts. It had, laser guns. It had bolters. It had all sorts of different things. Okay. And I printed them all. Just thinking when I'm done, I'll put it together with how I want it to be. And some of the stuff failed when I printed it. It's just how it is sometimes with an FDM printer. The beauty of how this thing was laid out was that every gun setup had its own separate file that would sit on the bed. And so I couldn't put multiple of these files together. I mean, it was, 10 different things at one time that would print all together. It was just one file, which was great until things started to fail. And I didn't need to print everything all over again. But luckily, using, 3D Viewer, which every PC has, I was able to go in. I was able to cut out the pieces I didn't need and create a custom file with just the pieces that I needed to rebuild. And so every time that something blocked my path, the wonderful people of the internet, you, were there to help. And that's what I love the most about this hobby, is that no matter what you're trying to do, what you're trying to make, how you're trying to make it, there is help out there. And so what I want to say with this video is simply this. Don't give up. If you started an army 10 years ago and you haven't gone back to it, now's a great time. There's files out there to print it if you want to. There's people out there to print it for you if you need them to. Don't give up. Keep making it. Get that army done so that you can look at it on the shelf when it's finished and completed and feel that satisfaction that comes with preparing an army for this hobby. Preparing a tank for this hobby. I promise you won't regret it. And on that subject, a lot of people struggle with mental health. Talk about a natural, just amazing feeling high is when you get these things done. So get out there and do it. I promise you there are people out there to help you. I hope that this channel can help you. And if you like what we're doing here, as always, please like, subscribe, stick around. Things are just going to get better. Like I said, more than half the army is done already. I'm hoping to have it all done by this next week. I've been out of town a bunch the last little while, so I haven't been able to finish it. But I'm hoping to have it done next week. So stick around for that video, and I'll give you a breakdown of how everything went, what it cost, and how it looks in the end. But until then, thanks for coming around. And as always, don't spend so much time building your world that you forget to spend some time in it. Because, hey, nothing's better than the only thing better than making your toys is playing with them. Until next time.